Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into a really disturbing crime. Happened down in Palm Beach County, Florida.
Yeah, this one. It's often described as, one of the most horrific imaginable. And the person at the center of it all is Austin Harif.
Right. And the information we have, it paints this really unsettling picture. I mean, you start with this young guy who, honestly, on the surface, looked like he had everything going for him.
Absolutely. Born into a pretty wealthy family, seemed comfortable, and he did really well in school, Advanced classes, top of his class.
Yeah, and athletic too, played football, wrestled. But interestingly, people didn't see him as aggressive. Actually, the opposite. They called him the happy boy. He seemed like genuinely interested in helping people.
Which just makes the shift, the later events, so much more jarring. This wasn't someone with like a long history of trouble or violence.
No, exactly. And getting into Florida State University, into their pre-med program, that was huge. It lined up with what he said he wanted: medicine, helping people.
You can imagine his family was thrilled, probably saw a really bright future ahead.
Totally. Yeah. Which, again, just highlights how bewildering and frankly tragic the whole thing becomes.
That clear path makes the turn it took just really hard to comprehend.
So then you get to his first year of college, and again, on the surface, looked okay, good grades, had a girlfriend, he even got really into bodybuilding, built up a social media following for it.
Right.
But underneath all that, according to his own journals later, he was really struggling, feeling inadequate, like he didn't fit in.
And that kind of internal conflict, the difference between the public face and the private struggle, that's something you often see in cases where there's a maybe brick later on. It builds up immense pressure.
Yeah, and it seems like he started using substances to cope. Started with alcohol, marijuana, but then it ramped up. Vivance, LSD, mushrooms, even MDMA.
Wow.
He described this really destructive cycle,
Yeah.
The drug high, and then when he was sober, just intense anxiety, depression.
That kind of up and down the chemical roller coaster, it can be incredibly destabilizing, especially if someone's already feeling insecure. It just amplifies everything.
And what's really disturbing, maybe a warning sign, is his internet search history. This was in the month before he came home for the summer.
What was he looking up?
Things like, I think I'm crazy. What do I do if I think I'm crazy? Even, how do you know if you're crazy?
That really suggests he knew on some level that something was seriously wrong, maybe trying to understand it himself.
Desperate, yeah. Like he recognized something was changing but didn't know what it was or how to get help.
And then he comes home?
And the change is immediate and bizarre. He moves his bed into the garage.
Into the garage? Why?
Said the house was full of demons. He'd stay up all night walking around the house like patrolling. Every few hours he'd bang on his family's doors, announcing he was guarding them.
Okay, that's a significant shift. Suddenly having these beliefs, this behavior, it's not him. It sounds like a real disconnect from reality. Delusional thinking.
His family, you can understand, they first thought it must be the drugs. He'd admitted using stuff.
Right, that's the logical first thought.
So they focused on getting him to stop. But here's the thing, he claimed he did stop using, but the strange behavior, it just kept going.
That's a really key point.
Yeah.
Because while drugs can definitely trigger or worsen mental health issues, if the weird behavior continues after the drugs supposedly stop, it suggests something deeper might be going on, not just intoxication.
Yeah. So by mid-August, right before everything happened, his family was actually considering the Baker Act.
Ah, the involuntary commitment law in Florida.
Right, if someone's the danger to themselves or others.
But they didn't get the chance to act on it. August 15th arrived.
Okay.
And it started strangely. He showed up at a close friend's house out of the blue and just asked him, "What year was I born?"
Huh. That's disorienting. Like he's losing his grip on basic facts about himself.
Totally. Yeah. Later that day, he's at the beach with friends. And his behavior gets even weirder. He puts on, heavy clothes, a football jersey, sweatpants, in Florida.
Yeah.
In August.
Yeah, hot day. And he's wearing 2 watches, sunglasses. And when his friends kind of teased him, about the outfit, he apparently got really aggressive. Threatened them, said, "If you tell me I'm crazy, I will kill you."
Whoa. Okay, so going from happy boy to threats of violence, that's a massive change. And the sensitivity about being called crazy given his searches.
Right. It points to his own fear, probably. And get this, he also told his sister something really bizarre around this time, said, "I'm actually half horse and I'm immortal."
Half horse, immortal. Okay, now we're really getting into delusional territory.
His sister begged him to get help. And apparently for a moment he agreed. He said something like, yeah, I agree, something's wrong, I need help.
That moment of clarity, it's significant, shows that even in what sounds like a developing psychosis, part of him still knew.
But it didn't last. Later, they met his father at Duffy's restaurant.
Yeah.
And Austin suddenly says he needs to test his immortality.
Oh, no.
And starts walking right into traffic. His sister had to physically grab him, pull him back.
Wow. That's acting on the delusion. Impulsive, dangerous, no sense of self-preservation. Classic signs of a severe psychotic state.
And the restaurant scene just got weirder. He left, came back. Left again, came back again. The second time he left, he went to his mom's house nearby. She found him drinking vegetable oil straight from the bottle.
Drinking vegetable oil and eating Parmesan cheese, I think I read.
Yeah, eating Parmesan cheese too. Just completely disorganized, irrational behavior.
That consumption of non-food items, sometimes that happens when reality perception is just totally gone. No sense of what's appropriate or safe.
Then his final return to the restaurant, his dad, understandably, is upset, confused, asks him straight up, "What is wrong with you?"
I mean, what else do you say at that point?
Austin apparently just pressed his dad's face against the seat, then left for the last time. That's when they called the police.
Yeah, the family clearly felt helpless, scared. Calling the police signals they knew it was beyond their ability to handle.
So now we have to talk about the victims.
Yeah.
Michelle Mishkin and John Stevens.
Right. It's so important to remember them.
They're recently retired. People describe them as just happy, loving, enjoying their retirement. They loved hanging out in their garage, apparently, called it their happy place.
Just awful, innocent people. Their lives just gone.
And their neighbor, Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
He's a close friend.
And he witnessed it.
He did. His account is, it's harrowing. He heard Michelle scream, saw Austin slamming her car door, then saw Michelle in the garage looking terrified. Then Austin attacked her.
God.
Jeff, incredibly brave, tried to step in, help them, but Austin turned on him, attacked him with a knife, stabbed him 5 times.
He tried to save them. That's remarkable courage.
Yeah.
But it shows how sudden, how brutal Austin's attack was.
Jeff managed to call 911, and the call itself, it's terrifying. He's bleeding badly, begging for help. And in the background, he said he could hear these animalistic grunting sounds, screams. Couldn't tell if it was one person or two.
The animalistic grunting, that detail is chilling. And it becomes significant later when we talk about the possible diagnosis.
The first 2 officers arrive, Kristen and Dan. And the scene they find, Dan describes seeing this huge stream of blood in the driveway. Kristen already had her gun out.
Just walking into absolute chaos.
And then he saw it. Austin, on top of John Stevens.
Oh, man.
He had his arm around John's neck, and he was biting John's face, ripping flesh off.
That act, the cannibalism.
Yeah.
It's so far beyond typical violence, it really points to an extreme psychological state. Something profoundly wrong.
The officers tried everything to stop him. They couldn't shoot. John was right there.
Right. Risk of hitting the victim.
Taser. Didn't work. Had no effect. Dan kicked Austin in the face. Repeatedly. Austin just kept going.
Unbelievable resistance.
Then the canine unit got there. The dog bit Austin's arm multiple times, hard. But Austin apparently just yanked his arm free, ignoring the injury, and went right back to biting John's face.
That resistance to pain, that single-minded focus on the horrific act, it suggests, complete dissociation, a total break from normal instincts like self-preservation.
Finally, Dan managed to kick him off John. Then he literally leaped onto Austin's face to try and stun him. And they finally got him handcuffed.
And even then,
Austin was reportedly screaming things like, "Kill me, I'm eating humans, kill me."
just chilling. It sounds like he was trapped in some kind of monstrous delusion and knew it was monstrous.
The outcome was tragic. Michelle Mishkin died from blunt force trauma. John Stevens died from multiple injuries. It looks like he died trying to save his wife.
Such a devastating loss. His final act, trying to protect her. It's heartbreaking.
Their dog, thankfully, survived.
Yeah.
And Jeff Fisher, the neighbor, he recovered from his injuries eventually.
We really have to pause and acknowledge the immense suffering here for Michelle and John, for their families.
Absolutely. After Austin was restrained, he just became unresponsive. They took him to the hospital, and they found out he'd ingested poisonous chemicals from the garage.
More irrational behavior.
Yeah, led to an 11-day coma. But somehow he physically recovered.
That he survived ingesting poison after everything else? It's almost unbelievable.
So initially, everyone assumed drugs, right? Bath salts, Flacas, those were big concerns in Florida then, linked to bizarre violence.
Yeah, that was the immediate media narrative, the public assumption.
But the toxicology report came back.
Yeah.
And it was stunning.
No bath salts, no Flacca.
Nope. Only thing in his system was a tiny trace amount of THC marijuana.
Wow, that changes everything. That really threw cold water on the simple drug-fueled frenzy explanation. It pointed towards something else.
Yeah. So when the police questioned him, first he claimed he remembered nothing. Zero memory.
Amnesia.
That's what he claimed. Later, he gave this really incoherent story. Said he saw an evil figure, white face, ran through the neighborhood for help, believed Michelle was a witch, attacked her because of that, mentioned drinking chemicals, saw another figure with the dog, presumably John. Then, blank.
A fragmented, paranoid, delusional narrative. That sounds much more like psychosis. And notice, he didn't account for attacking Jeff Fisher, right?
Right, no mention of Jeff at all, which fits with that kind of disconnected memory you might see in psychosis.
So this brings us to the psychological evaluation.
Exactly. Dr. Philip Resnick, a well-known forensic psychologist, assessed him.
A highly respected expert in these kinds of cases.
And Dr. Resnick's conclusion was that Austin Harif was suffering from clinical lycanthropy delusion during the attacks.
Clinical lycanthropy. Okay, explain that.
It's very rare. It's a specific delusion where the person genuinely believes they are turning into or have turned into an animal. Often a werewolf, but it can be other animals.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. It seems to fit several disturbing pieces here. Austin's earlier comments, "I'm half horse, half dog." The animalistic grunting Jeff Fisher heard during the 911 call.
And the biting.
And the biting. The attempt to, consume flesh. It all aligns disturbingly well with that diagnosis.
So the delusion of being an animal could lead to acting like one in the most horrific way. The biting, the grunting, the resistance to pain. It provides a framework, however disturbing, to understand what seems completely senseless otherwise.
Austin did do that interview with Dr. Phil later. He apologized to the families, said something was deeply wrong with him, that he needed help.
The apology is noted, but, the core question remains about his state of mind during the event, his awareness, his control.
Understandably, the families of Michelle and John, their response is just immense pain, anger. They've said they want him fully aware at sentencing. They push for the death penalty.
You absolutely understand their need for justice, for accountability, given the sheer brutality and the loss.
And as things stand, Austin Harif is still awaiting trial.
So the legal process is ongoing.
Yeah. So we're left with this just deeply disturbing, perplexing case. Violence that seems to come from nowhere. No clear drug explanation. This bizarre animalistic behavior.
It points strongly toward a severe psychotic break. And that diagnosis, clinical lycanthropy delusion, it's rare, but it offers a potential explanation for the truly incomprehensible nature of his actions that night.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how fragile mental health can be. How quickly someone's reality can just shatter. How perception and actions can change so drastically during psychosis, even in someone who seemed, okay just months before.
It's a stark reminder, a tragic one. It underscores why understanding mental illness, early intervention, proper care, why it's all so critical.
Yeah, it highlights that urgent need for better understanding, better resources. Just a tragic case all around.
Indeed. A profound tragedy with implications we're still grappling with.